what's happening guys? Mike Moo here. This is a quick first look review of a cheap alternative battery grip for your A7R III, A7III, or Alpha 9. Okay, so this is the Neewer battery grip. It actually says on here that it is for the Alpha 9 or the A7RIII, but as we know, the battery system, battery grip, and the body is exactly identical, so it is fully compatible with the A7III, at least so far in my testing. All right, so this retails for about $50, $50 to $60. I imagine that a lot of these battery grips are all sold the same. They're all roughly the same price point. However, this is the only third-party one that I've tested. And keep in mind that what I say right now about this grip might change in the future due to different manufacturing variances or if they have to update the battery grip itself. Okay, so what you get for your money is basically this nice little box, a user's guide in here that explains some things about the battery. And also, if you pony up for a little bit more for the combination package, you can also get one of the, or two of the third-party battery packs by Neewer. And it has roughly the same, and actually it says roughly the same type of voltage, and the capacity and the watt-hour capacity and everything looks exactly the same. You don't get a charger with this package, but you get two of these. And what's interesting to note is that if you have the two batteries actually in the grip itself, you can charge the two batteries directly while connected to your camera through the USB-C charging port. You can actually charge the two batteries. I don't know if I trust that or not. I have an external charger that I'm going to go ahead and link down below, let you know. It's also by RAV-Power, and I use that for my external charger. Okay, so now on with the battery grip. I gotta say that the fit and finish, just externally and visually and the feel wise, when it is fully attached and latched in, actually feels pretty darn good. It feels like it's pretty close to OEM. As we all know, the OEM version is going to be quite a lot more expensive. That's one of the reasons why you could consider something like this. There's a rubberized texture on here, and sniffing it, it has a chemical smell, of course, much more so than the stuff over here on a Sony A7III, which I have currently attached right here, right now. But it is also a little bit more grippier, so that's actually a positive benefit. So overall, I actually do like the grip. It feels really good in the hand. The fit and finish of this visually looks pretty darn identical, very, very close to OEM. The Chinese manufacturers over there have definitely got it down pat. Now, this version was actually manufactured in 2019. There is actually a little watermark on here on the side that actually has a date and manufacturer. That's a little bit hard to see. You can't actually see it through here, probably on a camera system on here. So I do in fact have one of the latest versions. I have so far had zero compatibility problems with it, with the two batteries that were provided. I've also tried the Sony battery in here, and I've also tried the RAV-Power battery in here. I haven't had any problems with it so far. One thing I do want to mention is that there's zero waterproofing on this. It won't matter for me on the A7III, and it won't matter for me it will matter for me if I'm using it on the Alpha 9. So if you're using Alpha 9, obviously you spend so much money, you might as well go ahead and get the original one from Sony. So those are two very clear cases where you definitely want to get the original battery grip. I hope I didn't have to really mention that. A lot of you guys did probably already know that. Okay, so now on to the rest of the construction. I want to say the batteries fit in fine. The battery cage, though, there are some flimsy areas about the battery cage. Okay, number one is this locking latch mechanism right over here. This is flimsy as heck. I mean, if you leave this open by mistake, just a quick flip of your finger in the wrong way, you will snap that whole thing right off. And I don't see a great way to prevent that from happening, other than that you got to do it with extreme care. And I suggest maybe putting on some gaffer's tape on top of this to make sure that you don't accidentally do that and just completely break it. I mean, pretty much this is the weakest link right here, this battery latch. It is super duper slim. It's probably the slimmest, most delicate battery latch that I've ever seen on a third-party battery grip. And it's kind of surprising that they didn't go ahead and beef that up a little bit, because I think that would be one of those failure points that you know, users would complain about. The other part is this whole back plate over here is also fairly flimsy. I've had third-party ones just kind of break off. So you want to be very, very careful with this battery cage. Okay, always leave this attached and always leave it latched in. Definitely put some gaffer's tape and make sure that you lock this down. What's interesting is that the spring actually holds it in pretty well. So unlike some other third-party battery grips that I've used with other cameras in the past, this actually has a nice click to it, nice click and sound. It actually seems to stay. We'll see how well that works over a longer period of time, but I did notice that. There are plenty of screws holding this together, so the rest of the cage itself seems to be fairly well made. One of the things that you'll definitely want to check out when you first get one of these grips and put in one of your expensive batteries, before you do any of that, is you want to take a look at all the pins. You want to make sure all the pins are straight. You want to make sure that you didn't get a return item where the pins were kind of broken. I've seen that happen before, and I've seen that ruin a couple of batteries, and I'll show you an example of a photograph right here where the pins got ruined. I'm not sure whether it's because of a bent pin here or bent pin there or battery manufacturer defect. You definitely don't want to short out your battery or your camera as a result of that. Okay, so that's quite a bit about the battery cage. I imagine this is pretty much the same battery cage as all the other third-party brands that you can see through my link down below that they sell relatively cheaply on Amazon.com. Okay, all right, so the batteries actually fit in okay once you get the hang of putting it in. Please don't force anything when you stick it on in there because these plastics in here are relatively delicate. It's something that you can easily break and snap with your hands if you're in a rush. And definitely don't be wearing any of those thick gloves when you're adjusting this. So if you're out in the wintertime or some extreme temperature environment, take off your gloves, make sure you can feel everything in here before you're switching this, and be careful when you're putting it in there. Make sure it has that snap when you go ahead and slide that in, all right? You definitely don't want to put it in there wrong because you'll definitely break it. Okay, so that's that about the battery cage. Probably the weakest link on here. Okay, second other thing. The attachments in the fit and finish, you can see it actually lines up almost perfectly. They did a really good job on the exterior fit and finish. It looks like an OEM product. Basically, they probably just copied the mold from Sony and produced almost precisely the same thing exterior-wise. Now, thing about the buttons. They're actually a lot more louder when clicking. So that's going to be a little bit annoying if you're in a church, if you're a wedding photographer, you're recording something that is really sensitive to noise. See that? That's clicking this center joystick part. That's clicking in. Granted, I rarely use that, but if you click the same Sony one, see that? Much different sound. Okay, so the buttons, they make noise. They're not quiet. Even though they have a solid feel, you can definitely tell that the switches are cheaper than what you have on Sony's, of course, entry-level full-frame camera. So the buttons, the center console button, the AF on plus and zoom in button in playback is a little bit louder. The AEL button is louder. The two custom buttons at the top are louder, and the scrolling wheel actually sounds okay. All right. I'll give them that. The scrolling wheel sounds almost precisely the same, and so far I've tested it real briefly, and it seemed that, all the buttons and the switches work. There's actually a lock switch up here that you can lock it to make sure that when you're not using it in a portrait mode, accidentally pressing these buttons is not going to go ahead and change things up. Shutter button feels okay as well. Definitely not as good as the Sony ones, but definitely good enough for the price. So overall, I'd say that so far with this first look review, it definitely is worth the money if you want a portrait grip and you just want it really cheaply and you are not a professional, you are not using this in extreme environments, you don't need weatherproofing, and you're not shooting in a church and expecting to press these buttons, because people are going to turn around, they're going to hear you clicking on a button. I mean, that's, while it's not that loud when you're outside, inside in a really silent environment, I mean, I find that part could be a bit annoying there. Okay, so that's it for this quick first look review of this battery pack. And even though I want to say you get what you pay for, I think you get more than what you pay for. The value is fantastic. This is a great way to get a nice battery grip for cheap. And also, if you get the package with the 2 battery packs, it only costs about $15 extra for each of these battery packs. These are, of course, generic. They're not going to be the same quality as Sony. You should never expect that. Sony charges $90 for these. This was only $15 each when you get the package together. So you get 2 of them for $30 more so far right now. You can check out my affiliate link down below. And so far they've been working out okay. All right. Now, definitely don't fool yourself in thinking this is going to be a replacement for the Sony if you are a pro user, the Sony grip or the Sony batteries. If you are spending this much money on a camera system and you definitely rely on it for your work, make sure that you pony up for the higher quality stuff. And of course, with all the different cons of the battery grip, overall, I still give this a recommend. Okay, thanks for watching. Please give this a like, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you in the next video.